Yeah. I was actually born in Florida. I was born in Orlando, but my mother really decided early on that Orlando was not going to be cool, not a good place to raise a kid. So we wound up moving to Maine, and I grew up there, which had some funny effects because Maine is very old school New England, like old school, and if you weren't born there, you're not from there, no matter what. Like I moved there, I think when I was 3, but I was always considered kind of an outsider. So it was an unusual childhood because, for one thing, Maine doesn't have any or they didn't have any sound design or audio schools or anything. And I was really clear early on that that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. So it was really frustrating. I don't want to knock Maine too much. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, but I really had a hard time fitting in the whole time I was there. And basically I knew as soon as I became old enough, I was gone. I was going to leave. I have I was trying to think of examples for you guys, but I have early childhood memories. One was my dad built his own stereo and didn't really know what he was doing, but it came out all right. But he had this album called Hatari by Henry Mancini, and I just went nuts about it. I just loved it. It was like big band orchestra, but with African instruments. And I just remember just being entranced by the sound, and he was using a lion drum and djembe and all this weird stuff that didn't belong in a jazz orchestra. He was using a kalimba thumb piano, just because he's an awesome composer. But I was just I remember thinking how do you make the piano sound like that? That's real. What is that? And then I think I heard Hendrix and I was like, oh, okay, here we go. I'm all over now. Then I saw Flash Gordon and the Queen soundtrack with the crazy symphonic guitars. I was just like, oh my God, that's how did he do that? And I've spent years trying to figure out how he got that tone. And Ben Burtt's a huge hero of mine. He's the sound designer for Lucas. And Star Wars was my first movie ever. My dad thought it'd be hilarious for my first movie, because I think I saw it when I was 5, and so he took me to a drive-in. Right, so I'd never been to a movie before, and we saw Star Wars at the drive-in. After that, I was just done. I was just yeah, that's the most amazing thing ever. He was. I still remember him laughing about it. It was pretty funny. We actually had one of those drive-ins that actually had good speakers. They had a stereo setup that you put in either window, which I found out later it was super rare. I don't know why Maine had it, but they did. But I remember sitting in the back seat, and I was getting imaging and all the panning that was in the mix. I was just floored. This is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. I remembered that when I was 12, I knew that I wanted to be a recording engineer or something like that. I didn't quite know what it was. And my mother found a college that had a recording studio class. And I know now it was the basics of production. So she drove me there, and I was in this class with all these 40-year-olds. Had no idea what was going on, and they were talking about Nyquist theorem and all these mathematical problems, and I became so frustrated because I had no idea what they were talking about. All I wanted to do was make sounds and create things. I was really just kind of winging it. And I remember in sophomore year in high school, I got into Queen and all these guys who multi-tracked. I thought that was cool. So I remember my friend Trevor had a JVC boombox that had mic mixing on it, so you could record vocals over a tape. And I figured out how to do multi-tracking guitar parts for our rock music because we didn't have a mixer or anything. We had no idea what we were doing, but because it was mic mixing, like it would just keep increasing in speed. So we like had to figure out pitch stuff, and it was so stupid. But like, yeah, we were like, we were using this boombox and doing like 4-track guitar parts. It was hilarious, and like you could only do hard left, hard right, like weird stuff. But like, my impulse was always there, like doing stuff like that. I just loved it. So it was really hard because we were also dirt poor. I came from a very, very poor family. I didn't have money for college or anything like that. And I knew really early on that sound is what I wanted to do. And I also knew really early on I probably wouldn't be able to do it because we had nothing for college, no money saved, nothing. We were just kind of surviving. The first thing I did after I graduated from high school is I went to Europe. I just was like, the hell with it. I got like this crap job, earned as much money as I could, and I went to Europe with like $200. And I remember I got to Heathrow, and I went to the custom agent, and she was like looking at me like, evidently I had this look like I didn't know what the hell I was doing, which was true. And she was like, how much money do you have? And I told her, and she was just like, you're so stupid, go ahead. She just let me in. And like, I wound up staying for like 5 months and like going to Scotland and France. And like, I would just like, I remember I was in Edinburgh and starving because I had no money. And I figured out this bakery at the end of the night would throw out all their stuff. So I made friends with the baker, and I would like eat at midnight because like that's when they'd have the food. It was so horrible. But I actually learned a lot of things. I linked up with an exchange student I had met in high school. And one of the things that happened when I got there is he was really into theater, and they had, one of his friends had the program Acid Pro. And it had just come out. I think it was like 97 or 98. And I was just like, oh, this is awesome. So like they were all going out and raving because that was like the big time when E was circulating around London, and I had no interest in drugs or anything. So I was just like, oh, okay. It was really weird because they would go out until like 5 in the morning and party and then sleep all day, and I'd go out all day and like go to museums and like on the tours. I was such a geek. But I basically stole this guy's program and did stuff with it while they were gone. I tried to teach myself how to use it. And I remember I took Beck's song Loser and just put it in and remixed it, and like had no idea what I was doing, but I like wound up making this really awesome remix. So they were like, oh wow, that's really good. So they took it to the club, and they like wound up playing it at the club. And I found out later from my friend Nick that he was like, yeah, actually they passed that around to it became kind of this underground thing, and like people were wondering about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I probably could have done something with that, but like I just like said, oh, here, have it. So anyway, I was getting pretty depressed because I got into restaurants. I was like a bartender for years because it's easy work, easy money, and I was pretty disillusioned. And one of the things that I did is I figured out really quick that I did not want to be in Maine. I didn't want to be on the East Coast. I wanted to be on the West Coast. And I moved to San Francisco sight unseen just by what I read about it. I looked at LA, but I was like, I don't think LA is for me. And I read about San Francisco, and I was like, yep, that's it. And I remember when I literally got off the bus here, I was just like, yeah, this is it. This is where I want to be. And I found a roommate in the Sunset. Just had a bunch of crappy apartments. Took some really horrible bartending jobs. I think this went on for like 2.5 years. And then finally, I just had this breakdown, and I was like, I'm not doing what I want to be doing. I'm really clear that I have something I want to do. So I remember just Googling like recording studio mentor, and just took the first site that came up, and I wound up being really lucky. The site that came up was actually, they were on the up and up. They wound up linking me up with a man named BZ Lewis, who was running a recording studio on Mission Street at 5th. It was a horrible part of the neighborhood, but like he was actually incredibly good. In fact, now I think he has 5 Emmys. He's insanely good. So I just got super lucky, and I interned with him for about a year. He really went hardline with me. I had to learn about recording bands and setting up mics, and like he really had me do it old school. I remember he had taught me for a few months, and he had a jazz rock band coming in, and he basically said, "Well, my wife and we're going north for 4 days, so it's all you. You have to figure it out. These guys aren't paying much money, so they'll be patient, but this is the best way for you to learn. I'm kicking you out of the nest." And I was like, ah. So like this band is in here, and I'm like trying to figure out the mixing board and where everything's going, and they're like waiting around because this noob is like trying to like get everything done. But I actually did it, and I got it pretty close to what they wanted. And he came back and he was like, "Oh, you're not dead. This is awesome. This is actually pretty good." And so I wound up staying with him for about 2 years and just working on various bands. He did a few post projects at that point. He became really good at that later, but he was mostly doing bands at that point, and he was just exceptional. He was also a shredding guitarist, like an insanely fast guitarist. So he was mostly using Pro Tools, and the way I would learn is I would sit and watch him and like figure out what he was doing, and then he would give me a copy of the session, and I'd have to like try and mimic what he was doing. But the problem was he was so freaking fast. He's still the fastest Pro Tool user I've ever known. He'd just be like, and I'd be like, ah, you know. So like it was really, and he's like, well, I'm not slowing down, so you have to learn. And so it was a lot of trial and error, and I had to just kind of go through and learn, and I picked up a lot of production techniques from him, and I just really got lucky because he was pretty pro and really good at sound. And I just had this moment. It was also when I met my wife, but I had a moment where I was like, okay, I really have to take this serious and go to school and like kind of build on what I've been learning from this guy. And so I investigated expressions over in Emeryville. I looked at SAE, and I looked at Pyramind, which is a few blocks from here. And I really liked Pyramind because when I showed up and I asked the teachers, what's your favorite part about doing this? They were like, oh man, I was just working on this song with a student the other day, and it's just brilliant. Like, I get paid for this. I can't believe it. It's awesome. And then I was doing this, and we had this new piece of equipment, and I got to figure it all out. And they were really different in their answers, because when I asked the other teachers at the other schools, they were like, well, it pays pretty good. And like, that was it. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with the guys who were like really into this. And that was really intense. It was basically a 2.5-year program, but crammed into 1 year. And they would start out with like 40 students, but like 3 would graduate because it was just like super burnout. It was very, very intensive stuff. And I kind of piled it on. I decided I didn't want to do their loan program. I'm going to try and do this monthly and pay them monthly and just have no debt when I get out of this. Which was a smart thing to do, but it almost killed me because I took their full course. I was doing classes 5 days a week, and then I took a bartending job on the weekend. So I had no days off for a year. It paid off though. I actually got a lot from that school. I wound up learning all the DAWs, music theory, music business, post. I took their first game audio sound design class. They didn't have one, and it was just like, game audio's been around for a while, but it's really only kind of developed over maybe the past 7 or 8 years. Like, it's really people have started to figure out like this could actually be really amazing. So they started an FMod class, and they started a game sound design class. So I wound up taking the first ones that they offered, which was kind of hilarious because I figured out after a while that some of the teachers didn't really know much about FMod. So like, I was kind of learning concurrently. Which was a very interesting experience, but it was that was intense. That was an intense way to go about it, and I just basically went for it. I was tired of not doing what I wanted to do, and once I started really investigating into school, and when I first was exposed to acid, then I started looking at sound design and how that works, and I read up on everything I could about Randy Tom and Ben Burt and like all the organic sound designers, and like how they would take different sound elements and kind of morph them together to, you know, just use elements that would kind of lock together. And I really liked that whole concept. And then once I got to Pyramind, I started learning more about synthesis and like how that's even cool, and like you can like melt that in, and yeah, I've just always liked really amazing sounds and trying to figure out how you do them and like how you can reproduce it. And the more I learned about video games, the more I learned like that's where I need to be. Like the idea of having a piece of entertainment media that changes every time you experience it, like for an audio guy, like that's cool. That's super cool. But yeah, so then after Pyramine, it was Double Fine. And the way that came about is in the game audio class, I think this was 2008, right towards the end of 2008. Our teacher, Paul Lipson, who's now audio director over at Microsoft, he was an amazing, amazing teacher, but he came in, I was early for class, and he just came in and he said, Emily Ridgway is looking for an intern. You need to skip my class and go do up your resume and get it to me now. So I was like, okay, who's Emily Ridgway? Like I ran out and like I had no idea who she was. I didn't really know who Double Fine was. I wasn't a huge gamer. I was into a lot of games, but like I didn't really know who was who. I was just starting to figure out that I liked game audio and I liked that it's non-linear and you can do like all these crazy things with it. So I was like still kind of learning about that. And he was just like, trust me, just go do it. So I went and I made up my resume and I did some research on Emily and I was like, oh my God, she's total badass, BioShock, holy, I love that game. And then I researched Double Fine and I came up with this really interesting thing. When I was still in New England, this must have been 95, my friend Sean, my roommate Sean, brought in a CD-ROM of Full Throttle and he like didn't want it. So I was like, oh, I'll try it out. And I started playing it and I was amazed. I was like, this is an awesome game. And I remember thinking about the sound of the floating limo and then I figured out, oh my God, that's Mark Hamill. That's Rip Burger's Mark Hamill. And like, so I was like really into the game. I remember having thoughts about that later. I was like, oh man, that was such a cool story and I really liked the game. I didn't really look into it though, because I was just not where I was at. But then I was researching Double Fine and I was like, holy shit, Tim Schafer, Full Throttle, oh my God, this is amazing. So it was just like this great circle that I came back to that because I really, really liked that game. I liked the whole concept. And I would remember it years later. Let me back up a little. So my interview with Double Fine was a little weird because I didn't know too much about them. I knew that I really, really wanted to do something with them because I could tell even then, like, this is where audio's going. I could tell that this was kind of an emerging frontier that I was really getting interested in. But I had no idea how to land the job. And more than that, I think they talked to some other students. There was one guy in particular that interviewed with them, and I was kind of depressed because he had super chops. He was like really, really good. And so I was like, okay, I'm probably not going to get this. So what can I do to use this interview to like learn and further myself and figure this out? So that's where my head was at. I was like sitting in the scrum room, like kind of waiting for Brian and Em to come in. And I remember sitting there going like, I'm probably not going to get this. So why don't I just enjoy myself and like talk to these people? So I had like this whole attitude of like, yeah, you know, whatever, it's cool. And I remember Em came in, she was like asking me all these questions, and then she was like, you know, what do you want to do here? And I finally was just like, I don't know. I mean, I was like, I don't know what to tell you other than I really, really want to be part of something special. And I think you guys are doing something amazing, and I could just feel it. And I go, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll empty the garbage. I don't care. I just want to be involved in something with legacy. And she just is like, well, that's it. That's what I want. And then I found out like 2 weeks later, like she meant it, like I'm in. And so I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. So I told my school and everything and they were like freaking out. And I came here and like I had to learn Windows in like 2 weeks because we had only worked on Macs and I had to buy my own computer. I hadn't had a computer until then, I couldn't afford it. So I wound up getting my own computer and like learning all this stuff and coming here and learning how to use SoundForge and like all this crazy things. And this was for Brutal Legend. I remember after my interview with M and how it was all ramping up. And then I had a second, smaller interview, but it was with Caroline and Tim. And I think what they were doing is they were just trying to make sure everybody fit in, company culture-wise, and they wanted to get to know people. So I came in and I remember going, yeah, I'm really excited. I can't wait to do stuff with you. What are we doing? And he was just like, well, we're doing think of a world that's full of heavy metal albums that have come to life, and there's gonna be Ozzy Osbourne and Tim Curry, and there'll be this magical guitar, and then Jack Black's gonna show up, and you're gonna be battling demons, and I remember he did this big long story, and I'm just like, and he's just like, does that work for you? And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. That's totally, I'm like, holy God, that's awesome. So I was just flying, and I just kind of jumped in and started doing stuff. I was immediately put onto editing and doing dialogue, which is typical. You go into a studio, that's where you start because there's a lot of it. And I remember M at one point was just like, this game's huge. I have a lot of work to do. You're now dialogue editor. Period. She's like, don't mess it up. So that was crazy because it was I think it was 35,000 lines. I was doing dialogue editing for months. It was just a huge, huge project. I was working on Brutal Legend. The company was just going full tilt. It came out. It didn't quite do what they expected. I wasn't privy to it, but I mean, that was a super dark part of Double Fine's history. They didn't know if they were going to make it. But I remember knowing that I was going to get laid off because they had to kind of circle the wagons. So I felt great because it was originally supposed to be a 4-month internship, and it turned into 9 months or something crazy. But I remember feeling really bad because I could tell this was someplace special, and I didn't know if I would get into something like this again. The day that I was let go, Tim came in to my office, who I'd never really talked to other than that first initial interview. I hadn't talked to him in months. And he came in, and it really struck me because it was really important for him to tell me that it wasn't because of me. He was just like, I need you to know that everything you've been doing has been totally great, and we're really happy. He goes, this has nothing to do with you. This is some other stuff. And he goes, but it's important for me to tell you that. And he goes, do you think you would come back if we do go, get back up on our feet again? And I'm like, well, the CEO just came in and talked to an intern about letting him go and was upset about it. I'm like, yeah, I'd go back to a company like that. Are you kidding? That's awesome. That's totally rad. And so that really touched me. It really got me that he really cared about it. And then I was laid off. I think it was about 7 or 8 months, something like that. My wife was in a scooter accident. She wound up shattering her left knee. It was pretty bad. I was on a recording job over in the East Bay when that happened. I basically thought that we were done because we knew it was going to be a ton of money. She was going to be out of work for a long time, and we actually didn't know if she was going to walk right again. And then right when my wife started getting better, Double Fine called and said, hey, we're back. We're starting to do more games. And actually, it was Brian who called me, but he was like, would you be interested in coming back? And I was like, yeah, I would love that. Then that was stacking, getting back into stacking. And I think they had just finished up with Custom Quest. I had done a little bit of preliminary work on that, but not much, and they had just finished it. So I wound up working on stacking. Then they had this whole run. It was 11 games in 2 years or something crazy. I did a DLC. I owned the DLC for the Iron Brigade, the Rise of the Martian Bear. That was mine to figure out and run, and really cut my teeth on Once Upon a Monster. And then I kind of went full bore on The Cave. I was the lead sound designer on The Cave, and I wound up learning a lot on those projects. And the sound design, to me, is a little more fulfilling because there's a lot more that can go wrong. usually like in any kind of cutscene or gameplay or vignette or whatever, there's like, 40 sound effects going on, whether it's dialogue or ambience, and like how they're all relating. If they're all relating right and they're hitting spot on, it's incredibly satisfying because there's a lot of work to get it to that point. And I'm always telling my school, I actually have students from my school come over and I show them around DF and like talk to them about game audio, because a lot of music and audio production schools don't really have a concept about game audio. They understand the audio part, but like most practices when you're making an album or you're making a movie, you're not working with as many other people or as many other departments concurrently. Usually like in post, like you can work with the director or producer, but you usually have like a locked picture, and then you talk about vision, you talk about editing. This is the beginning, middle, end. Oh, you want to edit this? Okay, blah, blah. It's not like that at game audio at all. In fact, a lot of the times I have to talk to the animators and designers and programmers because we're all going to kind of hit at the same time. So I have to kind of guess what they're going to do, which is really hard. And you just have to keep communicating all the time. So I've been telling the students who come over, I'm like, it's like you record a band and you get an awesome drum take and you can only play it back 3 days later. And they were just like, oh, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's like that, because you can make this awesome sound in Pro Tools, but it doesn't mean it's going to sound like that in the game. And not only that, it probably won't play yet. So you have to really find this different workflow. And that took me a while to get my head around that when I first got here, because it was not what I was taught. Like the workflow that I was taught at school, rightly so, was more set up for a linear art. And with game audio, you can't really do that. You have to kind of broadly sketch, and then at the very end, you just kind of get down to details in coherent path with the other artists, which can be really tricky. So yeah, I think for me personally, the big payoff is seeing not necessarily just sound design, but the relationship of the sound design, the music, and the dialogue all working correctly. That's actually huge, because it's a long road to get it to actually do that right, more so than anything I've ever been involved with. The thing that I've really noticed is you have to, if you're a sound designer, you have to pay attention to weight. And it's a really odd thing, but I keep coming back to this. And that's that in games, sound is super important about the weight of things. And usually you have like people going through water or picking up objects or driving some kind of vehicle. And if the sound of the weight of that object or vehicle or water feels right, it like sells 80% of it. It's really odd. And I've done experiments where I A/B stuff, like I'll do a scene from a video game and sound design it, but I'll do it wrong weight-wise. Like I'll make a feather sound like an anvil or something. Probably not that extreme, but like just kind of give it the wrong kind of feel sound-wise. And it changes game experience totally. And I'm really noticing, like, if you do the weight right, even if it's like a fantastical object, like you don't know how much it's supposed to weigh, but if you reach this point where your ears kind of like settle into it, it's so good. It's like, I actually think that might be one of the hardest things for sound designers, and the most important thing is actually deciding upon the weight of the sound. It's really hard to describe. It's almost more important than texture. Like, you pick up a feather and it sounds papery instead of feathery. As long as that papery sounds like it's light enough, it actually sells it. It's really odd. But I've been noticing that with sound design more and more. If you can do that, then you can really sell the game, big time. So I've been noticing that. And you can also you can do experiments where the weight is wrong, but if you do it right, that can actually be kind of a cool effect. I've noticed that a couple times. It's hard to do, but that's something I would tell. I have told a couple game students to do that, game audio students. learn about weight and like how to convey the weight of something just through sound. Like picking that up and putting it down is better than, with that sound, is better than picking it up and putting it down with that sound. And like, it seems like an obvious concept, but like, you'd be surprised how many times it comes up, and like I have to really think about it. Like, how would that relate weight-wise? I've gotten to know other sound designers at other companies. I have a friend who works at Ubisoft. I know somebody who works at Blizzard. Lucas was Lucas. I'm really starting to understand that Double Fine's kind of special. I was watching the other Sidequests, and they keep talking about family, and there's this thing, and it's true. It really is true, and I really feel kind of grateful for being here, because I think there is a feeling of fostering creativity, and like you actually get respected for it, and you don't really get squelched, which is good. I think it's really important, and I really hope that keeps going. I think it's a little bit of lightning in the bottle.